James had always thought of his life as ordinary. He lived alone in a small apartment on the 5th floor of an old building in the city. His days were simple: wake up, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, repeat. He liked the routine. It made him feel safe. He liked the quiet of his apartment, the way the sunlight hit the living room in the morning and the soft hum of the city at night. But on that Thursday evening, everything changed with a single knock on his door. It was a sound that seemed normal at first, gentle and polite. But when he walked to the door and peeked through the peephole, he froze. Standing there was someone, or something he could not explain. She was tall, taller than any human woman he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered in soft shades of silver and pale blue, almost as if tiny stars moved beneath it. Her hair floated slightly around her head as if underwater, and her eyes were the kind of green that made him feel like she could see everything inside him. Not just what he was wearing or carrying, but everything. His fears, his regrets, his secret hopes. James stepped back instinctively, but curiosity held him in place. Hello?" he said, his voice trembling. She smiled, a small, gentle smile that felt almost familiar, like something he had seen in a dream long ago. "Hello, neighbor," she said in perfect English. Her voice was soft, melodic, but it carried a strange weight, like she had lived far away and seen countless things he couldn't even imagine. "I need your help," James blinked. His mind raced. Help from her? She didn't look like she needed food, or money, or even directions. She looked different. He opened the door slowly. "Okay. Come in," he said, his voice uncertain. The moment she stepped inside, the room felt different. The air seemed warmer, and a strange calm filled the space. She didn't rush or stare around too aggressively. Instead, she walked carefully, studying the furniture, the books on the shelf, the small plant by the window, as if she was trying to understand what a human home felt like. "I am your neighbor," she said after a moment, her voice quiet now, almost shy. "I live in the building next to yours. We do not usually come here, but I need to learn from you." James frowned. "Learn from me?" he asked, though he had no idea what she meant. "Yes," she nodded. Her expression was serious now. "I need to understand humans, your feelings, your ways. I need to feel what it means to be part of your world." James felt a strange mix of fear and curiosity. He wasn't the kind of man who believed in aliens or strange encounters. And yet here she was, alive, real, standing in his living room, asking for something no human had ever asked before. I don't know if I can help," he said honestly. "I'm not special, I'm just me." She tilted her head, those green eyes never leaving his. "You are enough. I need a human. One human. Just one, please." James swallowed. Something about her voice, her gaze, made his heart beat faster. He didn't understand why, but he felt a pull toward her, a feeling he couldn't name. And so, despite the fear and confusion, he nodded. "Okay, I'll try." She smiled again, and it was different this time. Warm, bright, almost like the sun breaking through clouds after a long storm. "Thank you," she whispered. "I promise. I will try to learn, and I will not bring harm, only understanding." James closed the door behind her and leaned against it, his hands shaking slightly. He had no idea what he had just agreed to. No idea how much his life was about to change. The ordinary, quiet life he had cherished seemed far away now, like a memory from someone else's story. He took a deep breath, and in that moment he realized one thing. Whatever was coming, it was going to be extraordinary. The next evening, the knock came again. James opened the door, and there she was, standing as gracefully as before, her silver blue skin shimmering faintly in the warm light of the hallway. She looked hesitant this time, almost nervous. There was a softness in her eyes that made James feel an unexpected surge of empathy. "May I come in?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling just slightly. James stepped aside. "Of course. Come in," he said. He wasn't sure why, but he felt responsible for her, as if the universe had chosen him for a reason he didn't yet understand. Once inside, she walked slowly to the couch, glancing at the pictures on the wall, the books scattered across the shelves, the small trinkets he had collected over the years. Her gaze lingered on a photograph of his family, and for a moment James wondered if she could see their lives too, as if some invisible thread connected her to everything around him. "I need your help," she said again, her tone softer now, more personal. I want to understand humans. I want to learn how you feel, how you think, how you love. But I cannot do it alone. I need guidance. James swallowed hard. Guidance? From me? He asked. He had no idea how he could possibly teach an alien to be human. I don't even know where to start. She nodded slowly, her expression serious. Start with small things. Teach me about your life, your joys, your sorrows, your fears. I want to understand everything. I want to belong. James sat down, unsure if he should laugh, cry, or run. This was beyond anything he had imagined in his quiet, ordinary life. And yet there was something in her tone, in her eyes, that made him believe she truly meant it. She wasn't a threat. She wasn't here to take or to hurt. She wanted connection. I guess we can start with small things, he said finally. I'll try to explain. But you have to promise me. It won't be easy. Humans, we are complicated. And sometimes painful. She tilted her head, her green eyes studying him with an intensity that was almost humbling. I am ready, she whispered. I want to feel everything, even the pain. It is part of being human, yes? James nodded slowly.
Yes, pain is part of life.
But so is love. So is laughter, so is hope. You'll learn that too. For the next hour they talked. James described simple things at first. The warmth of sunlight, the taste of coffee, the sound of rain against the window. He told her about childhood memories, his favorite songs, the small joys that made his life meaningful. She listened intently, her eyes wide, absorbing every word, every gesture. When he paused, unsure of what else to say, she reached out, touching his hand lightly. I think I am beginning to understand, she said softly. This feeling in your stories, it is something I have never known. It moves me. James felt a shiver run down his spine. That simple statement carried more weight than anything he had expected. He realized that she wasn't just learning words or actions, she was learning emotion, empathy, humanity itself. And somehow that made him feel alive in a way he hadn't in years. But then came the harder moments. She asked questions that were almost too deep, too personal. Why do humans fight? Why do we lose hope? Why do we cry even when nothing seems broken? James tried to answer, his voice breaking at times. He realized that in teaching her, he was confronting his own fears, his own loneliness, his own unanswered questions, and yet he didn't stop. He couldn't. There was a connection forming between them, fragile but real, a bond that felt as though it could withstand the impossible distance between her world and his. By the time she left that night, James felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. His life, which had once been predictable and safe, was now shifting in ways he could not control. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Hope that even across the stars, even with beings who were not human, connection was possible. Hope that understanding could be taught, and more importantly, shared. And in that quiet apartment, as he closed the door and leaned against it, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. Days passed, each one blending into the next, yet every evening brought something new. The knock on James's door became a quiet, comforting rhythm. He no longer hesitated when he opened it. There she was, graceful, glowing faintly under the soft apartment light, her green eyes full of curiosity. Each night she seemed a little closer to understanding, and James felt a strange mixture of pride and awe. She didn't just sit silently anymore. She asked questions about everything, sometimes about the smallest details. Why humans liked music, why a smile could mean so much, why we sometimes laughed even when we were scared. James found himself explaining, using simple words, gestures, even drawings on a scrap of paper. He told her about emotions, about moments that changed him, about things he had never shared with another human. And she listened, truly listened, her eyes never leaving his face. It wasn't easy. At first she tried to mimic what he described. She would smile at the wrong time or frown when a story was meant to be funny. Sometimes she tried to laugh at jokes that had no humor for her, or cry when she didn't fully understand sadness, and yet she never gave up. Her persistence was endless, a quiet determination that fascinated James. He had never met anyone, human or not, so eager to learn, to grow, to understand. James began to notice small changes in her. One evening, She brought a tiny flower she had found in the hallway. She handed it to him, saying, "I saw this, and I thought, maybe you would like it." Her voice wavered, but there was a warmth in her gesture that made James's chest tighten. She was learning, yes, but more than that, she was beginning to care. Sometimes he caught her staring at him during moments of silence, her expression thoughtful, almost sad. He asked once, cautiously, "What are you thinking about?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I am trying to feel what it means to care, to belong, to have someone's life matter to you." James felt a lump in his throat. It was strange, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. Here was a being from a distant world, with knowledge and experiences he could never imagine, and yet she struggled with the same human truths he had wrestled with all his life. Loneliness. Hope, connection. The bond between them deepened slowly. She began to share things about herself too. Stories of stars and planets, of civilizations far beyond Earth. She spoke of her people's rituals, their strange customs, their ways of feeling that were different but not unkind. James listened, fascinated, realizing that he wasn't just teaching her. He was learning as well. She gave him a perspective on life, on the universe, on love that he had never known. And then came the moments that were hardest for both of them. She asked questions about fear, loss, and pain, things she had observed but never experienced. One night she whispered, "Why do humans hurt each other? Why do you feel so much sorrow?" James struggled to answer. "Because it's part of life. To feel joy, you must also feel sadness. To care, you risk being hurt. But that is also what makes us alive." She nodded slowly, her eyes shining. "I want to feel all of it. I want to feel joy, sadness, love, pain, even fear. I want to understand what it means to be human, truly." James reached out, placing a hand over hers. "Then we'll learn together," he said softly. "It won't always be easy, but it will be real, and real is worth everything." From that night on, their connection became something neither of them could deny. There was laughter now, genuine laughter, echoing in the apartment. There were quiet moments of shared understanding, moments that didn't need words, and there was a subtle, almost magical feeling of trust growing between them, an unspoken promise that they would face whatever came next together. James realized something extraordinary. In teaching her to understand humans, he was rediscovering the parts of himself he had long forgotten. His own emotions became sharper, more vivid. His own heart felt fuller. And he began to understand that humanity was not just about being human. It was about connection, courage, and the willingness to open oneself to another being, even when it felt impossible. By the time she left that night, he felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, hope and anticipation. Their journey had only just begun, but already life felt larger, brighter, and infinitely more meaningful. It had been a few weeks since James first opened his door to her. Their evenings together had become a steady rhythm of learning, laughter, and quiet reflection. But that night was different. The knock on the door was urgent, almost frantic. When James opened it, he found her standing there, her posture tense, her eyes wide and shimmering like liquid emeralds. "James, I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. I tried to feel joy as you taught me, but it hurts. Everything. It hurts." James immediately stepped forward, his heart pounding. He had seen glimpses of her struggle before, but never like this. Her usual calm presence was gone, replaced with raw emotion that she could not control. She was shaking slightly, and there was a light trembling in her hands, the kind he had seen in humans who were deeply afraid. He took her hands gently, holding them as firmly as he could. "It's okay. You're safe," he said softly. "Feeling is hard. Humans feel joy and sadness, love and fear, all at once sometimes. It's overwhelming. But it's natural. It's part of life." She shook her head violently, tears welling in her shining eyes. "I don't want to hurt. I don't want this pain. I only wanted to understand humans, to belong. But why? Why does it feel like I am breaking inside?" James felt his chest tighten. He realized that this was more than learning. This was the first time she truly felt the weight of human emotion, the first time she touched the parts of life that could not be controlled or predicted. "Because feeling means you are alive," he said softly. "Pain is part of life, yes, but so is hope, so is love. You are not breaking, you are learning to be human." She looked at him, her expression torn between fear and longing. But how can I belong when it hurts so much? How can I care when I might lose everything? James swallowed, struggling for words that could comfort her. Belonging isn't about never hurting. It's about sharing your heart anyway. It's about trust, courage, and the willingness to face life with someone at your side, even if the world is scary. You belong because you try. You belong because you care. For a long moment, they just stood there, her hands in his, her shoulders trembling. The silence was heavy but not cruel. It was a quiet pause filled with understanding. Slowly, her breathing began to calm and the faint glow of her skin softened. She looked up at him, tears streaking her face, and whispered, I think I understand. A little. James smiled gently, brushing a tear from her cheek. That's all anyone can ask. Understanding takes time. You don't have to feel everything perfectly right away. You just have to keep trying. She nodded, resting her head briefly against his shoulder. I am trying. I really am, but it is frightening. I know, James said softly. And that's okay. Fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And I will be here, every step of the way. They sat together on the couch for hours, talking quietly, her voice shaky but slowly gaining strength. She asked about love, about loss, about the moments that made life painful yet beautiful. James shared more stories than he ever had. About friends he had lost, dreams that failed, the loneliness he felt in quiet nights. And for the first time he realized that in teaching her, he was also healing parts of himself. By the time she left that night, the fear had not disappeared entirely, but it had shifted. There was a fragile strength in her steps, a determination that glimmered in her eyes. And James, standing at the doorway, felt something profound, a deep, undeniable connection. She wasn't just learning about humans, she was learning about life, about love, about hope, and she was teaching him the same in return. As he closed the door behind her, he knew that this first crisis was only the beginning, but for the first time he felt ready to face the unknown with her. Ready to share not just his knowledge but his heart. And in that quiet apartment, a promise was silently made. They would face everything together, no matter how painful, no matter how hard. The nights following her first breakdown were quiet. The knocks on James's door came with a gentler rhythm, almost as if she were hesitant, testing the waters of human connection. James noticed subtle changes in her, slight smiles that seemed more natural, a relaxed posture, even the way her eyes glimmered with something like hope. She was learning slowly but surely, and he too was learning. One evening she arrived carrying something small in her hands. It was a tiny cup filled with warm tea. She set it down on the table before him. I thought this would help, she said softly, her voice almost shy. Humans say it comforts the heart. James smiled, a warmth spreading through him he hadn't felt in years. Yes, he said, it does. Thank you. They sat together in silence for a while, sipping the tea. The city lights filtered through the window, painting the apartment with golden streaks. She glanced at him, her green eyes filled with curiosity and something deeper, a quiet longing and eagerness to feel. James, she began, hesitating. I think I am beginning to understand. Not everything, but some things. The warmth of this tea, the comfort of sitting with you, your words. I feel something. Joy, maybe. Is this what you feel? James reached out, taking her hand gently. Yes, he said softly. That's part of it. Joy comes in small moments. It's fleeting sometimes, but it exists, and you're starting to feel it. Her lips curved into a faint smile. It was different from before. Softer, genuine, a reflection of the emotions blooming inside her. I think I can feel it. I want more. I want to understand more. Everything. James felt a lump in his throat. Her determination, her courage to embrace humanity despite the fear and pain was astonishing. Then we'll take it one step at a time, he said. We'll face everything together. Over the next few nights, they explored small joys together. He showed her music, simple songs at first with soft melodies. She listened intently, letting the vibrations fill her senses. Sometimes she laughed at the rhythm. Sometimes she frowned, confused by the emotions it stirred. But gradually her laughter became real, her frown thoughtful. He took her on small walks in the building's courtyard. She marveled at the feel of grass beneath her feet, the wind brushing against her skin. It is beautiful, she whispered. I never imagined life could feel like this. One night she hugged him suddenly, unexpectedly. It was awkward at first, her tall frame bending as she tried to mimic a human gesture, but her hug carried warmth, sincerity, and an honesty that left James speechless. "I think I understand now," she whispered into his shoulder. "I feel connected. I feel like I belong." James's heart swelled. He realized then that this was not just about her learning. It was about mutual discovery. She had brought life into his quiet apartment, into his quiet soul. She was teaching him patience, trust, and empathy in ways no human ever had. He held her a little longer, realizing that the bond between them had grown stronger than words could explain. It was trust, compassion, and understanding intertwined, delicate yet unbreakable. And in that embrace, he understood a profound truth. Belonging wasn't something you were given. It was something you created together. By the time she left that night, there was a glow in her eyes he had never seen before. Not just from her natural luminescence, but from the spark of humanity she was learning to carry within her. James watched her go, a smile tugging at his lips, a warmth in his chest that refused to fade. In that quiet apartment, he realized that life had changed forever. What had begun as a knock on a door, a strange and unexpected request, had blossomed into something extraordinary. They were no longer teacher and student, alien and human. They were companions, discovering the depth of emotion, connection, and the extraordinary power of caring for another being. James leaned against the door after she left, breathing slowly, feeling a sense of hope he hadn't felt in years. The universe was vast, endless, and mysterious. But in this small apartment, two beings, so different yet so alike, had begun to share something eternal. Trust, understanding, and the quiet, radiant beauty of connection. After weeks of quiet evenings and small breakthroughs, the alien woman, whose name James had learned was Lyra, began venturing outside with him. At first, it was just the courtyard of their building, the soft grass beneath her feet and the wind brushing against her skin. Every sensation fascinated her. She marveled at the ordinary, the mundane, and the small moments that humans often overlooked. "James," she said one afternoon, her voice filled with awe, "I never realized how alive the world feels. Even the wind, even the leaves. It's so different from my world." James smiled, watching her eyes light up. "This is just the beginning," he said. "There's so much to see, so much to feel. Every day is a chance to discover something new." They started taking walks in the city streets, blending into the crowds. People noticed her at first, tall, radiant, shimmering faintly under the sun. But most were curious rather than afraid. A few stared or whispered, but James never let that affect him. He introduced her as his neighbor, his friend. And slowly people accepted her presence. She was different, yes, but her gentleness and curiosity made her approachable, even endearing. Lyra learned quickly, absorbing human customs with determination. She laughed at jokes, asked questions about human relationships, and even began to show small acts of kindness, helping an elderly man carry groceries, comforting a child who had fallen on the sidewalk. James watched her with quiet amazement. She was becoming more human, not by pretending, but by feeling. One evening, after a long walk, they returned to his apartment. Lyra paused in the doorway, looking out at the city lights. "James," she said softly, "sometimes I feel like I belong here. Like this world is not foreign to me anymore." James put a hand on her shoulder. "You do belong," he said gently. "Not because you are human, but because you care. Because you choose to understand, to love, to feel. That's what matters." They faced challenges too. Some people were wary, some even fearful of her presence. Once a neighbor crossed the street rather than pass them, whispering warnings about her. James felt frustration, but he stood firm. "Lyra is learning," he explained. "She is not a threat. She is one of us in the ways that matter most." Lyra looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You defend me, even when it is hard," she whispered. I do not know how to repay you." "You don't need to," James said. "You already have. Just by being here, by trusting me, by learning to care, you've given me more than I ever expected." Evenings became their sacred time. They would sit by the window, looking at the stars, sharing stories of her homeworld and his own childhood. Lyra spoke of distant galaxies, of civilizations beyond human imagination, of lessons she had learned there. James spoke of family, of friends, of the small joys and sorrows of an ordinary human life. And in these shared moments, their bond deepened beyond understanding, beyond labels. There was a quiet magic in it. Two beings from different worlds, teaching each other what it meant to live fully, to love, to trust, to belong. Lyra's growth mirrored James's own awakening. He felt his own heart open wider, his own compassion deepen. Her courage inspired him. Her curiosity reminded him of the wonder he had lost as a child, and her trust gave him a sense of purpose he had never known. One night, as the city lights twinkled below them, Lyra reached for his hand. "James, whatever comes next," she said softly, "I want to face it with you, not as a human, not as an alien, but together." James squeezed her hand gently. "Together," he agreed, a quiet smile on his face. In that simple word, they both understood the truth. The universe might be vast, unknowable and dangerous, but facing it together made it a place of hope, of love, and of belonging. In that small apartment, amidst ordinary furniture and everyday life, two extraordinary beings had found something far greater than knowledge, greater than discovery. They had found connection, and they knew deep in their hearts that no matter what the world thought, they would face it side by side. The nights had grown warmer as spring arrived, and James sat by the window, looking out at the city lights twinkling below. Lyra was beside him, her hand resting gently on his. It had been months since she first knocked on his door, months of learning, laughter, frustration, and discovery. And yet, in that quiet moment, it felt as though time itself had slowed, letting them simply exist together, breathing in the warmth of their shared journey. "James," she said softly, her green eyes reflecting the golden glow of the city, "I want to thank you." James turned to her, curious. "Thank me? For what?" "For everything," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "For letting me in, for teaching me what it means to feel, for showing me that belonging, that love, is not just something humans say. It is something humans do, and you taught me that." He felt a lump in his throat. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of countless experiences, countless nights of struggle and learning. He squeezed her hand gently. "No," he said softly, "thank you. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, that life is bigger than routine, bigger than fear. That connection, true connection, is the most important thing we can have." She smiled, the faint glow of her skin warm and comforting. "I think I am ready now," she whispered, "ready to feel fully. Not just the small joys or quiet moments, but all of it. The happiness, the pain, the fear, the hope. I want it all, and I want to face it with you." James looked at her, his heart swelling with emotion. He realized that this journey had changed him more than he could have imagined. He had opened his life to the extraordinary, to the unknown, and in doing so, he had discovered something he never thought possible. Love, not just romantic, but the love that comes from deep understanding, shared struggle, and mutual respect. "You don't have to be afraid," he said, brushing a strand of silver blue hair from her face. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together. You belong, not just here, not just with me, but everywhere you choose to be." She leaned closer, resting her head briefly on his shoulder. "I feel it," she whispered. "I belong. I feel human, even if I am not, and I feel alive, because of you." A quiet silence settled over them, filled with unspoken words, with promises, with the simple presence of two beings who had found each other in a universe so vast it often felt lonely. James thought of the nights she had trembled with confusion, the tears she had shed when emotions overwhelmed her, the laughter that now came easily to her lips. He thought of how far she had come and how far he had come alongside her. "I think," he said softly, "that this is what it means to be human, to care, to trust, to love, even when it hurts. You taught me that, Lyra. You showed me that being human isn't just about flesh and blood, it's about the heart." Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "And you showed me courage," she said, her voice steady. "Courage to feel, to try, to connect, even with someone so different, even with someone from another world." James smiled, feeling an incredible warmth spread through him. He realized then that humanity, in its truest form, was not about strength or intelligence or even survival. It was about connection, compassion, and trust. And in teaching her and walking beside her through every fear and every triumph, he had become more human than he had ever been. The night grew quiet around them, the city softly humming outside their window. And in that quiet, they sat together, hands intertwined, hearts open, souls connected across the boundaries of worlds. Lyra's journey to understand humanity had begun with a knock on a door, but it had led to something far greater. A shared life, a shared understanding, and the extraordinary, unshakable truth that love and belonging could exist even in the most unexpected places. As James looked down at her, he realized that the universe, in all its vastness, had brought them together for a reason, and in that realization he felt a profound sense of peace. The galaxy could be cold, the stars distant, and the world's endless, but here in this quiet apartment, two beings had discovered something eternal: connection, understanding, and the power of the human heart. And for the first time in his life, James knew without a shadow of doubt that everything, every ordinary day, every struggle, every moment had led to this. This was extraordinary. This was life. This was human, and it was perfect.